Thank you for coming. I wanted to just say two things to start off. One, I'm really pleased to be here for a couple reasons. One, it's a great opportunity for me to talk a lot about the work we're doing at AT&T Wi-Fi. It's an incredible set of services that we're offering into the marketplace, and Angie and Peter Feldman, John Mosier, Daniel Coleman, our management team has really been super supportive about how to innovate around delivering service and capability to our customers. And second, to really thank Daniel and Giancarlo for helping me get focused on putting the presentation together and participating. This was a really fun project for us. We began probably last November, and doing code reviews has really, for our organization, proved to really be beneficial, and I'd like to take you through what that story is and how it worked for us. What is AT&T Wi-Fi services? Really, it's providing Wi-Fi capability to a number of large institutions. How many people use it? Using it for the conference, to stay connected to the office, it's becoming, I'm going to say AT&T believes that, wireless broadband is going to continue to deliver significant value for consumers, and so we're really focused on making it happen for the world. There's an announcement today. Fisheye and Crucible 2.6 are out in the marketplace. I'd also like to make an announcement. Nintendo's making the 3DS available and work at all 25,000 Wi-Fi things that, or Wi-Fi hotspots that AT&T deploys. And so, any 3DS users out in the market, in the room? No, not a lot of gamers out there. If you are, feel free to go to an AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot. And so that went live today. So this was in last Thursday's CNET news. And so I don't know how it compares to the new Fisheye and Crucible 2.6, but I'm pleased to make a similar announcement. So what is, what are the business challenges that kind of drove us to look at code reviews as an opportunity to make our development process more efficient? Network growth is our number one, driver. The metrics that we had, what took us 6 months to reach in 2009, we did in 5 weeks in 2010, and this year we did it in the first 11 days. And so, as you're building out an infrastructure to provide that type of services, you really got to think carefully about how your code base has to change, how your network appliances has to change, what your access points look like, what your customers are looking for, what kind of network configurations they need to be successful so that they can begin using the latest technologies. We work with a lot of retailers. They want to do wireless order taking. We work with organizations that want to deploy Wi-Fi TVs so that they don't have to run cables to show demo screens in their organization. So, all right, these are, super critical business, focused deliverables. How do we begin managing our code base to make sure we're deploying secure and scalable solutions? We talked a little bit about network growth, security. We work with people who provide large vacation centers. They don't want to be known as a place to go and download MP3s, or I'm comfortable saying MP3, but there's a lot of other dangerous material out there. So they want to be able to understand who's using the network, how's it being used, how can they manage and secure it so that they feel comfortable that that hotspot is being used for purposes that enrich their end user. Bandwidth utilization. When you get people to a hotspot, how do you begin understanding shaping what their experience is like, and how do you prevent one user from hogging all that bandwidth? They're about to leave on a trip to Europe and they want to download 14 episodes of Futurama. How do you manage that experience and keep keep everybody getting a quality of service that they expect? And one of the technology challenges that we're facing, we work with a code base that's about 10 years old, 300 million lines of code. I think probably when we started out, IPv6 was maybe just going into conference. We've run out of IPv4 addresses now, so enabling our applications to accept IPv6 addresses, and internally being able to use them is one of our technology challenges, and that's going to roll forward as we move ahead. So what, we wanted to do Agile code reviews really for two reasons: to help educate our end users, our developers, and really to increase the reliability of our releases. Getting more eyes on what's happening in our code base is really valuable. We, for the last 18 months, we've been running in an Agile environment, and we really try and focus on building projects around motivated individuals. This is one of the key tenets, Agile tenets that we use, is how can we begin doing things that people are interested in doing and making us more efficient. And so code review was something that people had talked about. They wanted to get more of an opportunity to see what's happening, and so this was something we wanted to do. And these two things are really, we have a code base, it's 10 years old. It's going to continue to have a lifespan as we see moving ahead, as we deliver these capabilities to our customers. How do we begin making, allowing it to be managed more successfully moving forward? So, we want to do, when we make changes, we want to do it the right way, even though we're pressed for time. We have a very rushed. We want to deliver capability to our customers as quickly as possible, but we need to understand what technical debt we're going to be building up as we make those changes. And so, we want to make everyone in the organization better. And so how do we begin building a collaborative environment? And we do, in our environment, we do changes anywhere from writing device drivers to changing icons, logos on web pages. And so the skill sets are very broad. So how do we begin, getting those much different types of people to talk to each other and understand what kind of impact those changes may have? So when it came to the development organization, we need to scale our infrastructure, we need to provide cross-training, and we want to improve the collaboration to get our releases more reliable. So that I was in here for the last release. They had talked about the importance of the rollback when you do a release. For AT&T, that's also really important, but we want to do as few of those as we have to. Just so I can get a sense, how many people here are in the development organization and might do a code review? Or, okay, great. How many people do code reviews today? How many people do code reviews using email? How many use Fisheye and Crucible? Oh, okay. Well then, you guys may, why don't you stop me afterwards? I'll take you through how we do it. I'd be very interested in the techniques you guys have used to deploy it to be successful. So what we did, we started last November, and we had a set of things that we worked with our management team. What do we need to do? Why are we going through this process? We put a team of, we have over 100 developers in our organization, and wanted to, we had a core group of folks who saw the value of, I don't want to say it's a poor man's pair programming, but it's a way you can get a partner to take a look at some code without having to sit right next to them. We had because our code runs on access points and on some appliances, it's a pretty sophisticated and rich code base, and so getting people trained up on being able to make changes in that really sophisticated environment can be a time-consuming operation. So we wanted to really, minimize the impacts before they go to QA, and that's really getting the developers who may be working on different teams but really have insight into how that appliance operates and how it works. Getting them to collaborate was something we wanted to focus on doing. So what this team did is we had 3 weeks, we went out into the marketplace, we started to look around, okay, what tools are out there, what could we possibly leverage? AT&T is, a big open source shop. We do a lot of our internal development. We have a lot of talented programmers and coders. We're not afraid to get best of breed tool, bring it in-house and build the integration. And so we went out and we had vendors come in and provide demos to us and interviewed with them and how are we going to operate. And so we were not, I'm here at the Atlassian Summit, but we were not married at that time to Atlassian as far as this capability went. And we did a pretty rich search, spent about 3 weeks and found out that the best tool really was Crucible and Fisheye. And with its Jira integration, which I'll take you through how we use it, was really a very powerful notion. So what does our AT&T environment look like? We're currently running Jira 4.1.2. Probably we want to upgrade sometime this year. We have 17 active Jira projects, a lot of plugins. We've been running Jira. I don't know. I'd be very curious to look up, but I got to believe we're one of the first licensees. I think we've been running it 10 years. And so we're an old Jira shop. We have a lot of Jira expertise in-house. A lot of the management team can build their own reports, are power Jira users, and so you'll see that here. And we've been running Greenhopper now for about, I want to say, maybe 14 months. We think for drag and drop, for the developers to be able to move tasks on the task board is really important, and for our product owners to be able to prioritize the list of features that are being developed is really important. And that's all drag and drop with Greenhopper. And so as the person at AT&T Wi-Fi responsible for some of the engineering tools, I'd like them to spend time in Jira, and I like them to use Jira, but with so much work to be done, the least amount of time they can spend in a tool is really the bottom line for us. So I'm here, so you can imagine what tools were selected. We did Fisheye, Crucible, and Crowd. The integration with Jira is really great. Ease of use. So for us, training these engineers, I think we have a lot of talented engineers, but when you ask them to start using a new tool, it's amazing how creative some of them can be to find problems or issues or concerns. And so we wanted to make sure it was super easy and we could train really easily. We needed to support online review. In other words, we have geographically dispersed development teams. We need them to be able to collaborate. They're not always working at the same time, and we needed to have that environment for us. A place where we could collect comments. And I'll take you through what our process is, but having those comments archived so people can go back and take a look at the value of the review was an important piece. The tool tracks time spent on a review, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the RSS feeds and the mail notifications, which I think were really important for our organization. So this was back in November. We deployed Crowd 2.1.0. We use CVS and SVN. The naming conventions for our developers weren't always consistent in those 10 years, so what a user's login name for CVS and for SVN may not be the same. It was really important for us to build that unified identity so that when you're looking at a set of code, you can see the history of what changes happened and actually who made that change. And that identity was really important, and we get that with Crowd. And so that integrates with our Active Directory and Jira. So now we have that holistic view about, okay, that person is really these identities on these other systems. And that was really valuable. We're running version 2.4.4. Today they announced 2.6, so you can see we're a couple releases behind. We want to catch up, and we're working on it. Fisheye is the component that does our source code browsing, and Crucible is the component that does code review. We came to this after we selected our tool set, but I'm going to say that for most organizations, this is the real critical piece. What is your code review process going to be? For us, it really elevated the role of the developer, the author. They're the ones who are responsible for ensuring that any code that goes into production gets reviewed. Well, what does that mean? It means our definition of done for our Scrum teams, you have to do a code review if that code is targeted for production. So it's up to the author. We don't, this is something that empowers the developer, and so we don't put any checks or balances on this. We have continuous builds and development builds. It's up for the author to make sure that happens. What do we look for in our review? Obviously, standards. We see the code base as having a long life, and we want to try and keep it maintainable, so adhering to our standards. Review, make sure the code follows our technical business processes. We use the review to get new people involved and to really get people who aren't familiar with what's happening in our code base comfortable with how to make changes there. And one of the things we did ask is that when you go for a reviewer, it's up for the author. He has to determine who's going to review that code. If he'd like a junior person to review that code and maybe not get a lot of technical feedback, but use it as an educational opportunity, he can do that. And so we have asked that those reviewers come from the same Scrum team so that we can build a little bit more stronger teamwork, which I think we've seen really valuable for our organization. If there is one slide that I'd like you to take away, this would be the slide. This is the change that we asked our developers to make, and that's really during the check-in process, and that is to include the JIRA ticket number in the comment when you check in code. You can change SVN, you can change CVS to ensure that, to do some regular expression parsing to make sure something like a JIRA ticket number is in a comment. We don't do that. We use some other reports on the back end, which I'll show you later, on understanding, hey, what kind of code is being checked in without a JIRA ticket number. But this has proved to be really valuable. Being able to this is the real change you're asking the developers to make to do successful code reviews. And so I don't see it as a real onerous task. As we rolled it out, I think developers tried to come up with a reason why that was so difficult, but ultimately, really, it's not. And we had very quick adoption and very wide adoption because of this lightweight integration. I'm going to say that we have about 10% of an overhead to our development of features and stories for our customers with a code review, so it's not free. It does cost some time and money. We collect some metrics around, okay, what kind of issues were found, and the number of I don't want to call them defects, but the number of improvements we've been able to make to the code base before compile time has been significant. So this is a JIRA ticket number. As you could see from the previous code, what happens is when you turn on the integration, you'll get a source tab in your JIRA ticket, and there are 16 change sets that have been checked into our repository. We have SVN or CVS, and that'll show up on this tab. And so what the developer will need to do in order for this story to be considered complete is they'll do this one-click, create a Crucible code review. And that will take them to this view, which is a list of all these files, and green means they've done a very good job with the UI, at least training developers with all the color coding that they've done. It's been really successful for us. Green means brand new file. There's no diff. But from this view, I tell people there's two keys you need to know, the J and the K key. And for someone who came from, been in the business a long time, used VI for a long time, J and K are very comfortable and familiar keys to me. I can train on that. It's not a problem. And so, but literally from this view, you hit J and you're looking at code. And so for folks who had done, at AT&T, we've done email, the first kind of code reviews are done via email. People package up diffs and they send them around. From here, two keystrokes and you're immediately looking at the diff or the new change is really, for the developer, it's saving time. And to be able to demonstrate that the tool is saving developers time, making them more efficient, it was a win-win for everybody. And so we had a pretty good adoption. And I want to show one more user interface thing, which I think is really, no, okay, maybe not, maybe in the next. But so from this screen, J and K key, this is how you navigate. People are using it right away. And then when the review is done, back on that JIRA ticket number, you have a review tab. And so any review that's been, or the status of any review that's being done associated with that story shows up on that tab. So for our pilot, we had a simple process. We had picked out our tool set. What were the technical challenges? We had a CVS repository that was quite large, 287 million lines of code. It took about, I want to say, 8, 10, 11 and a half weeks to index. And so when we were rolling out the tool, we weren't sure that it would be able to manage it. We had 7 guys on our rollout team, each of them poking at the tool, saying, "Is it done yet? Is it done yet?" So now that we know that it does work, and maybe it would go a little faster, but it took a long time before we had that repository indexed and available for browsing. We're trying to get folks to move over to SVN. We think it's probably going to perform a little bit better for us, be a little bit more maintainable. It gives us, full revisions on directory names. Have about 6 million lines of code there, and that took probably about 3 weeks to index. We had a core group of dedicated engineers who were interested in doing this. They wanted to collaborate better. They understood they needed to learn. They wanted to learn from each other. So that was good. But once we wanted to roll it out to the larger engineering base, how do we go about doing that? And so we wanted to get the engineers involved. And it really was a grassroots effort, talking to people, finding out what their interest was. Would they be interested in trying the tool? Did they find it valuable? And that was, it took some time, took some education to really get people interested in this visibility. And we'll talk a little bit about the activity streams, which I think are really valuable. But how many people check code into a repository? How many people, everyone who checks code in, you put a comment in there. How often, keep your hands up, how many people go back and look at the comments that they made a year ago? Anyone? Seriously? People go back and, yeah. Usually, I've been checking in code for a long time. I very rarely, what was that? I have a comment for that check-in. I don't check. I don't look.
To assign blame.
Well, yeah, okay. So a very negative, yes, absolutely. Who did that? I'm going to find them. But so one of the benefits around that activity stream is really it begins getting that work that developers are doing, which not a lot of people see unless there's a problem, to get that more visibility, and it really built a very good collaboration environment. And so how do you begin? In our environment, one of the challenges is you're talking with the engineering team. There's a lot of noise around the tool sets, the environment. We have a really complex environment, I want to say 4 or 5 different deployment scenarios. There's always an issue in rolling stuff out. How do you begin separating the noise from the wheat from the chaff? So we really kind of helped each other about listening skills, about really listening to what the developers were saying and really trying to understand, is that just people being upset about how difficult it is to get things done, or is that really something that we can change, we have control over, and that we can deliver an improvement around? And so that was important for the team to really sort of up-level their game around listening. Here's the slide I wanted to show a little bit earlier. One of the things in an Agile code review that we do is, again, a very lightweight process, up to the author to make sure it happens. And during a code review, very often, people will find stuff. This should not be just a greater than comparison. It needs to be a greater than and equal to. And so the developer, if they're good, will see, yep, absolutely, that's correct. And they'll want to make that change and check it right back in. And so what happens here is this GUI, this GUI is really showing the SVN revision numbers for that change. With one button, the developer can then include that next revision of the file into the existing code review very, very quickly, show the other developers that that change has been incorporated into the review. This button allows you to navigate between the different revisions, so you can compare, 32.976 and 33.471, and then whatever that new version is, and you can just slide that back and forth, and the diffs of each of the files of those version numbers will show up there. And so it's a very powerful GUI to allow developers to see exactly what's changed over time. And so this is a really strong, I don't know who, kudos to the team that did the GUI development. I think this tool is really strong in this aspect. So we have a big CVS repository. If you take a look at the online Atlassian website, there's the information about how to do a CVS rsync. We do a copy. Very little of the repository changes as a percentage on a daily basis. And so, we take a copy of it, we move it to an area that Fisheye and Crucible have access to, and use this rsync technique. So 10 years worth of code, 287 million lines of source code in there. Tuesday night at 6 o'clock is the most popular time for check-ins. So I don't know what that means, but if you're doing a service level agreement with your end customers, you may want to make sure Tuesday at 6 is covered. And again, assembly code, 2% is C code. The rest of it is other. So this is an interesting picture of what the repository is. The review coverage for us is what we were really after. How do we begin telling the management team how much of the code that's targeted for production has been reviewed and how successful the rollout is? This is very close to what the out-of-the-box feature set is for SVN. We use kind of an industry standard around trunks, branches, and tags. We made a little bit changes under our branch, under the different locations of our source tree. You can have branches and tags in multiple locations in the hierarchy, and so we made a couple changes to this to make that happen, and so had to change the arguments to make sure that the tool worked. Here we talked a little bit about the CVS repository taking months to scan. One of the issues for our reporting is right now we have under SVN our tagged branches are immutable, so no changes occur there. We ask that the code reviews actually occur either on a branch or on the trunk. However, when the reporting is done right now, the tool sees those tagged as unreviewed code. So we have a large percentage of unreviewed code as we tag that. So that's something we're working on. Right now we handle it manually. Took us some time to map IDs between the repositories, going back 10 years to find out who might have had these IDs was a bit of a challenge. And we partner with a lot of vendors to deliver code to us. It's not unusual for us to take delivery of 2,000 files for a new feature or capability that we've had a partner working with us on. And so when we want to do a code review for that, we noticed that a lot of the browsers, and this is where Chrome, I would say, performs significantly better than Internet Explorer and even Firefox, but there was a browser impact when you're doing large code reviews, and you would just have to wait for that browser to load with all the files. I mean, it's a very rich GUI, so somewhat understandable. So what were the unexpected benefits that we had? I am just a huge fan of this activity stream. When we first rolled it out, one of the developers in our organization said, hey, that looks like Facebook. And anyone using Jira with the new activity stream, it really just gives you a way to cut, slice and dice data in your organization in a really easy to understand. You don't need a lot of training. It's very simple, easy, and clean. And so for our architects to now get visibility into what kind of changes were happening in the code base. And it's the type of activity stream where you can do it anywhere in the hierarchy. So we have some people looking at the entire tree, and we have some other people looking way down on a specific a specific place just for changes to this one component. And so both work well. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more information in one than the other. But if you are responsible for a component or you're planning on making changes to a component, it's really nice to go back and see what kind of changes have happened here in the past. And it's a very, very powerful notion. A lot of people use the RSS feeds, and that's really a way of getting visibility into what's happening on a daily basis. You can get an RSS feed, what happened yesterday in this branch. How many people here work with Scrum Masters and product owners as an Agile environment? So, these are roles. They're not always responsible for coding during a sprint. One of the unexpected consequences for us was it really began giving these folks who aren't always so close to the code base visibility into what kind of changes were happening. And what it did is it really connected them better to the development teams and allowed them to do more risk analysis around, Jesus, we looked at that other review. There were actually 16 change sets associated with that. That's a pretty large change, a pretty meaningful change. Are we doing some additional testing around that? It allowed them to participate more fully to say, hey, how do we want to manage that risk? And then as they go to do planning in future releases, hey, that feature, that took us 2 weeks, and here's the files that changed. So if we want to, sort of plan in the future, we should understand that that type of change is going to have this kind of size. And so that was really interesting. You now had, product owners saying, hey, well, what's this, file doing in the release, which they weren't able to do before. So what kind of reports are we kind of running on a daily or, on a regular basis? We have, right now we're doing three some odd major releases a year. This is an example of the types of reports we can do. So we'll have a list of JIRA tickets that are made up of a particular release. We can now do a search in the tool, which allows us to show me all the code that's changed. And this line's probably not so important to us, the total lines, because the file could be quite old and very stable. It's these lines added and lines removed that allow us to do a little bit better analysis around, okay, what's the impact of this release? How much code has changed? Do we need to be ready for additional testing? Should we, and it really allows the senior management team to participate in doing some risk assessment. This is a report that we run for the Scrum teams. Right now, code can be checked in. We don't force people to put a JIRA ticket number in there. And so what we do is we'll have a list of folks on a particular Scrum team, and that's the author. And that's a list of IDs of code that's being checked in on that team, and that will produce a report for us. And it'll say, okay, these files were checked in by this particular author, and if there's a 0 in this column, there's not been a review. Not all code in our repository is destined for production, so we don't ask that it be reviewed, but it gives the Scrum Master an ability to see, okay, are we missing, with so much pressure on our development teams to be successful and to deliver changes, not every I is dotted and T is crossed. I'll just leave it at that. And so how do we begin providing support to understand what kind of impact this rapid delivery methodology is having on our organization? And then this is a user report. So, this is the activity stream for the user. And so you can click on a username and see, hey, what was Sean doing today? What has he checked in? What kind of code reviews is he participating in? And so it allows you, if you had a conversation with a colleague in the hall and you said, oh yeah, I got that fix into the release yesterday, and you go back to your desk the next day and you feel, what was that fix? I can't remember. You can go to his activity stream, find the check-ins that he did very, very quickly, find the check-ins that he did yesterday. Oh yeah, there's the file, there's the change log I need to look at to make sure that happens. So we're running, we have about, I want to say we've done about 580 or 558 reviews since our rollout in February. It's been pretty successful. We haven't leveraged all the feature in the tool set. I think that the Atlassian team will tell you it integrates with time tracking. So you actually can get a list of how much time each user is spending looking at each file. We don't use it. You can automatically open a defect in JIRA if the user finds that there is a problem in the code set. We don't do it. We try and minimize the amount of process around delivering these capabilities. And so for us, I think the engineering team appreciates that. We want to make it as light as possible, adding value and really empowering our developers. Thank you. That's all that I have.